everybody. It's Dayna Martin, community producer for Anarchapulco, and I'm here with Johnny Dupre. Hi, Johnny. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Dayna. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So Johnny is joining us. He's going to be presenting on the main stage. And why don't you tell people that don't know who you are a little bit about yourself, Johnny?
I am a born and raised San Diego native. I am a student of both psychology and sociology. So I spent the large portion of my life due to my own upbringing, my own childhood traumas and the things that occurred to me in my life. I grew up being fascinated by the human mind and the human spirit and how psychology related to sociology. And so how does the I relate to the we? So whether that be family or religion or specific communities or groups or your country, how does the individual psychology of us as a self interact with the world that helped raise us, essentially? And so I'm sort of a psychosocial trainer and an educator. So
that's awesome. Wow. It sounds like such a unique career. It sounds like something an unschooler would make out of a career, because it sounds like a lot of it's just your passions that really interested you, that you then drew in all the education for yourself and created this amazing career.
Yeah, and I got really fascinated because as a young boy, I was sexually assaulted. And as a result of that, my little mind at the time had covered it up. And so as I sort of grew up, I developed like nightmares and things that were emerging from sort of what we could call the unconscious or the subconscious. And as a result of that, around 12 years old, I became very fascinated with everything that had to do with dreaming, dream interpretation, nightmares, the subconscious mind. And so I became a hypnotist and became fascinated with how do we communicate with that other version of ourselves, and then put that together with the fact that we as an individual have to exist inside of not only our own subjective reality, but then interacting with all of the other shared realities around us. And so it just sort of came together all in one place. And I've been fascinated by it ever since and haven't stopped studying. So it's been a good life.
I'm sorry that you went through that in your childhood. You know, doing what I do, I talk to parents all the time that have gone through similar things. And it sounds like you've taken that experience and gone on to help so many other people heal from their childhood trauma. Because everything is connected to our childhood, isn't it?
I actually think that almost everything is connected. I mean, you can't say for me that anything is apart from the holistic us. So whether we talk about childhood or we talk about the fact that at 13 years old or 14 years old, we had a great mentor come into our lives and then provided a unique perspective on what happened to us then. And that acts as another role. I'm a big believer that consciousness is always learning. So whether you're, learned it at 1 year old or 3 years old or 10 years old or 25 years old, we're always trying to grow towards life, towards a better or a more version of ourselves, a better expression of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Well, I'm really excited that you're presenting at Anarchapulco this year. You're going to be on the main stage, I hear. That's the rumor on the street. You're going to be on the main stage, which is a really hard spot to actually get this year. People were just waiting anxiously to see who was on the main stage, and for you to be on it, that's awesome. I'm so grateful. What are you going to be talking about this year?
For me, one of the biggest things that I want to spend time talking about is virtue, which is something that's not necessarily the easiest topic to discuss, because virtues by their very nature can be defined by each individual. So the way you would define patience and the way I would define patience are not going to be the same thing. But when it comes to forming a community like the anarchy community, one of the biggest things I noticed just standing in the back of the room at previous Anarchapulcos was listening to everyone sort of have deep and profound discussions as to what does anarchy mean, or how do you form a community when there is still a bit of an argument as to how to define it, and can it be defined? Right. Well, a community needs to stand for something, sort of like a mission statement, or I know that the word I've heard you use before is a manifesto, or a set of values. Well, for me, I was interested in finding out what are all of the words in the English language that we use to define value or moral or principle or ethic. And then, so for a really long time, for about a decade, I had no idea. It was just a big question mark for me. What defines someone's personality? What defines a group's cohesion or their character? And for me, it finally came to me that it's about virtues. And some people call them attributes. Some people call them characteristics. Some people call them traits. But they are ways of relating to human experience in such a way as to define or label an agreement, an ability to find a shared reality. And so this year I'm going to be talking about the virtues of diplomacy, because if we're going to separate from big government and we're going to go into smaller communities and we're going to need to work with our neighbors and we're going to need to work in business partnerships, we're going to need to be able to come to agreements. And so I sort of picked out of the 600 virtues, I've selected sort of 25 of those virtues that are a bit imperative when it comes to developing agreements between people or groups. And so I'm going to be spending my time talking about those virtues.
That's awesome. I know Anarchapulco is going to utilize you in the future. Just you have such a way with describing peace and freedom and how to work with people. And I love that your approach with diplomacy on the main stage is going to be listened to by so many people, because this is a really common thing in any community, in the anarchist community. We're trying to find win-win situations. We want to respect each other. But it's such a new thing for so many people, where they were controlled their whole lives, and half the people attending are new to anarchy. So hearing about this is going to be really, really important on their journey, for sure. How would you define diplomacy?
I would say the ability to come to an agreement. For me, diplomacy is about the ability to not stay so attached to what you think the truth is. Because if you're attached to my truth is the only truth and it's the only perspective that's real and every other perspective is not real, then how am I supposed to come to an agreement with a neighboring country, let alone my actual neighbor who lives next door to me, as to what the boundaries of my property and their property are? You know, it can be as simple as that, all the way to relationships and saying, this is okay. We've made an agreement that this is what's okay and this is what's not okay. And this is how we will handle anything that violates that boundary or those boundaries. This is how we will communicate about it. So for me, diplomacy is the act of communication around an agreement.
You know, I love this so much, and I'm going to tell you why, because this is so hard for people, and it all comes down to parenting. I always pull things back to parenting, because no one's ever diplomatic or practicing diplomacy with children in the parenting paradigm generally. It's usually you versus them, and there's always a winner and a loser. And it's usually the parent, the adult, wins. And so it's focused on obedience and listening and doing what you're told. Nothing that's modeled to children is diplomacy. And so then we put them out in the...
Not generally.
No. I mean, very rarely. And even in school,
yeah,
they talk about share, make sure you share. Well, no one's been taught how to find win-wins. So everybody's needs matter. So parenting peacefully and focusing on the needs of everybody in the family equally, focusing on the kids' needs right from birth and the adults' needs. It's not ignoring the adults' needs. It's modeling for kids that here is how you meet everybody's needs. And so I'm really liking this word diplomacy, diplomatic parenting, diplomacy parenting. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to write an article about this.
And there's your genius starting to go, your creativity. I love it.
Well, anytime I talk to you, it goes. I'll tell you, you are one high vibe, creative person that, you know, when you just connect with somebody sometimes and you instantly feel creative, you are one of those people for me. When we chatted, I felt so inspired. I went and I think I wrote for an hour. You have a special gift, Johnny. You really do.
Thank you so much, Dayna. Not everyone feels that way, obviously, but that's the beauty of diversity.
Exactly. So I agree. Not everybody feels that way about me. Trust me. So do you consider yourself an anarchist?
I actually can. I don't even know. That's the real reason why I'm coming to give the talk, I think, is because based on all of the anarchists I've spoken to and I've asked them what their definition of anarchy is, I haven't heard the same definition repeated twice. So as a result of that, it's very difficult for me to say to a whole community, I am one of you, if I can't even find the same definition amongst three of them. Mm-hmm. So for me, am I anti-negative programming? Oh yeah. Am I anti-government telling us what we should think, how we should live, what's right, what's wrong? Oh yeah. Do I believe in personal sovereignty? Absolutely. So I'm a big believer that education is what drives choice, flexibility of choice. So you can't know your best option unless you're educated enough to see the options so that you can make the best one. And I'm a big believer in what I call institutionalized ignorance, which is the system is designed for you not to know, so that the only two choices are the ones they want you to pick from. And so if you call that anarchist, then yes.
And you have the freedom not to label yourself. A lot of anarchists are people that, believe in the philosophy and the basic tenets, or like we wrote in the manifesto that we have published now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did it in the email blast, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would agree that voluntary exchanges, for example, are the way to go. But this false illusion of choice that you're talking about starts in childhood as well. And thinking about when parents are told by experts to give their children choices, but it's within a certain realm. They want their child to wear a certain kind of shirt, for example. They might say, do you want to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt? It's the false illusion of choice. You're not opening their drawer and saying, pick whatever you want to wear. And so, yeah, I'm just relating, again, everything to parenting. Everything you say.
Exactly. Well, and in my field, we call that a bind. Which is if I'm only given two choices, then the individual who gave me those choices has set the context or the frame around it. Well, why can't I include all the shirts that are in my dresser drawer as being a part of the frame? Why is my mother or father or big sister or big brother selecting the frame for me? Well, that has to do with their own choices and their own frame and what they were quote programmed to believe. So I can't even get mad at my big sister because she doesn't even know that she was bound to choices.
Right. Oh.
So then I get to this point where it's like, what's the point in finding fault or finding blame? There's the individual that set the frame for me may not even know they did.
Right.
So what's the point in handing responsibility to them when really the ultimate responsibility falls to the individual to choose? Can I look outside of the frame and say to my own mother, what about my favorite green shirt?
Yes. Wow.
And then challenge.
Notes every time. I'm just taking notes in the middle of this interview. I should be completely focused on the camera, but I'm down because it's so fascinating. Yeah, I like this. This is amazing. So, well, you sound like an anarchist.
I feel like one.
Well, this is just so great, Johnny. So what are you most looking forward to at Anarchapulco this year?
If I can be so bold, I'm looking forward to being challenged. Like I'm actually looking forward to sitting in on the other speakers with my laptop open or my iPad out and really getting creative and listening to what they have to say and letting it hit my own frame on reality and entertaining that their perspective has something to enrich my life with, my world with. And then really I'm looking forward to then taking what they share back to my life, because it's one thing to sit in a room and entertain an idea apart from my world, the worlds I live in. It's a whole other thing to bring them back and allow it to imbue themselves in my spheres of influence, so to speak. So letting these other speakers really impact me.
That's so important. I'd love to write something about that for the attendees, just so they all come with that approach, because we talk a lot about at meetings and planning these different events having to do, on the property, that we want people to take Anarchapulco back with them, that it's not just about the event. Something I've noticed, and I'm just curious about your opinion, I've noticed that when a group of people are together, like Anarchapulco especially, it raises your consciousness, just being around people with a higher consciousness. It's such an amazing phenomenon. Like you could attend Anarchapulco, just being on the property and not even have to go to any talks, and your consciousness would raise. It is amazing, and it happens to everybody. And it's a phenomenon that it's really hard to articulate when you're in the marketing perspective. Like how do you share that with people? That when you come here, your consciousness will raise and you will leave on a different vibration than when you came. Do you find that to be true, or do you think that's like new agey?
No, well, the way you're presenting it is definitely, I mean, I would say new agey compared to where I come from, because my background is more traditional psychology and sociology. But Jim Rohn used to say, you're a product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I'm a big believer that we are, I mean, as much as we'd like to be called spiritual beings, we are very much animals too. And that is, we are impacted by the energy or the space of the individuals, the beings that are around us. And so, I mean, whether we call it the 12th monkey, which is, I don't know if you know the study behind that, but the concept is, you can teach a certain number of monkeys, and then all of a sudden, all the monkeys just suddenly know there's this tipping point, and then they're all aware of that new idea or that new methodology. For me, I'm a big believer that we are impacted by the energy or the essence of what's going on around us. Well, neuroscience says that our unconscious minds are absorbing about 400 billion bits of information per second. Well, that means that our own conscious minds, which is only about, I believe, 40 to 50 bits of information per second, that's a pretty big gap. Mm-hmm. Well, that means that we may be aware of so much more going on around us than we've ever known. So being in that space is a type of immersion. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, we are surrounding ourselves with those kinds of ideas. So whether I'm standing in a room at Anarchapulco, not even at the actual event, let's say I'm there on vacation, like I'm just a stranger, but I'm in the lounge, and there are 25 conversations going on around me that are all anarchy related. Well, 400 billion bits of information per second means my mind may be absorbing what they're all saying, and I may feel that impact in a very impactful way in my heart or in my gut and not know where it came from. I love that concept.
I love how you're taking my hippie language and turning it into something that the average person You're like the hippie whisperer.
I love it. We call
the language. Yes, that's so beautiful.
Well, the beauty of it is it's implicit learning.
Yeah.
So I can sit here and ask you, do you know what comfort is? Mm-hmm. And you can say, absolutely, of course I know what comfort is. But then I could look at you and say, when did you learn what the word comfort was? And you may not have a memory of when you learned the word comfort, but that doesn't mean that you don't know how it feels. Right. But somewhere in there, you got given that.
Right. I could have just been standing in a room when I was 7 years old and somebody
was talking. You could have been. Absolutely.
So I was watching a documentary recently about ayahuasca, and we're having ayahuasca at the event.
Powerful medicine.
Well, I've never
very powerful medicine.
Never done it, and I'm really interested. After I saw this documentary, and I've been hearing about it for years, and I totally respect the medicine, and I've learned a lot about it, and I love Lila Vega, the shaman that's coming, and he's bringing so many different people with him to help. But one thing that I learned in this documentary was that, just like you were saying, your brain can only take in so much. And it said in the documentary that what ayahuasca does, it's not an altered state of reality. It removes some of those filters to reality. And so, what was the number you said? 400,000?
400 billion, yeah, 400 billion bits of information, a crazy number.
So would you say that might be true with ayahuasca, that it removes those filters so more information's coming through at once?
My experience is that, well, I can take it from several different angles. If I take it from a spiritual angle, I would say that it's absolute, that ayahuasca is a gateway to our true self, to the truth of the reality that's operating all of the time. So it does remove those filters. From a mental perspective, I might say as a brain scientist or a neurosurgeon, I would say that the biochemical makeup allows the medicine to shift the nature of your neurosynaptic pathways in order for you to find new accesses in different places. Like it can be taken from several angles. All I know is that ayahuasca has been such an impactful medicine for so many people for so long that I don't think it can be discounted based on fear. And I think that a lot of the times medicines are discounted or pushed down based on our fear of a loss of control or a loss of our conscious mind, our inability to directly, in our experience, guide what's happening. But so much of the universe, in my opinion, can't be guided by us anyway. We're not really in control. It's that there's too many variables for one little being to try and navigate them all with purpose the whole time. So I think it's a good practice anyway.
Yeah, Deepak Chopra was on this documentary. I was blown away. I had no idea that he was such an advocate for ayahuasca.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he was actually I wouldn't say he was the host, but he was the one kind of explaining what an important tool it was. Blew my mind. And there were so many people in it that I had no idea were supportive of it. And I think a lot of them stay kind of like underground because they get such criticism for promoting it. People wouldn't take it seriously.
That's what I meant by that fear.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's something I'm really looking forward to trying. Well, I'm ready. I want to heal, man. Do you believe that I could heal somebody like without going through, they say 10 years of traditional therapy. I don't know what traditional is because I know there's so many different kinds. But in this documentary, it said like 10 years of therapy, you could be taken care of in one ayahuasca trip. If you're focused and you set the intention of what you want to work on, do you believe that that's possible?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm a big believer that consciousness is fluid. So when people say that'll take you 20 years to resolve that, or that'll take you 10 years, or that's that's 27 sessions or whatever that is, I just don't believe consciousness operates like that. I'm a big believer that we are capable of learning very quickly, and that certain medicines will speak to us when they do, and we can have those experiences. But I love what you said, which is if you place your intention on something specific, then you are joining the experience in a way that's not hands off. It's not like whatever happens, happens. You're guiding and directing, saying, I'd like this to shift this part of my life, or I'd like to learn about myself in a new way. I think you're right. I think intention plays a huge role. And by the way, congratulations on being ready to embrace whatever that medicine can offer you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny because before I had an intention or a purpose for it, I couldn't really find a place for it in my life. But then it just came to me. I became more self-aware about something that I really need some inner work with. And once I had that set, that I really need to work on this because I can't, no matter what I do, whether I'm eating raw vegan or I'm doing yoga or meditation every day, like, we try. I try to cultivate wellness and mindfulness and trying to heal past wounds or whatever. But with this one thing, I just can't break through and understand it about myself. So that's why I'm going to Mother Ayahuasca and saying, I surrender and I trust this process. And I'm really not even a little afraid. Like, I believe this is it. This is time for me to do it. So I think everything has to kind of line up for it to work, I'm sure.
Yeah, I believe that the human experience has just so many layers and so many variables that trying to plan for what will heal you feels a lot of times for me like a moot point, which is just set the intention to heal it and keep going until it does. Like be relentless in your desire for growth and alignment, and in a loving way, like a very compassionate tenacity.
Yeah. All right. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for everything you offered. I could talk to you for hours and hours.
I know the feeling.
You're so amazing and knowledgeable. Are you taking new clients if anybody's interested in connecting with you?
I am taking some new clients right now, not a lot because I have a current client load and I'm always very committed and dedicated to the current clients I have. But of course I'm more than open to receive. And of course I am connected to a great many individuals who are trained. So if I'm not the right fit, I always do the best that I can to say there may be somebody even better for you than me. And then I like to do the best I can to make the connection for them and reach out to another healer or practitioner.
Awesome. Would you share your contact info? How would people get a hold of you?
Yeah, people can contact me at processyourpotential.com. And that's sort of for the psychology work. But if people are interested more in how to relate to others better and build better connections and have better networks or friendships or romantic relationships, I'm also a partner in a company called Your Charisma Coach. And what we do is we teach people who haven't been blessed by parents who know how to connect with people instantly, how to learn those skills so that even though they weren't raised that way, they can still develop that part of their lives.
Oh my goodness. I love that. I didn't even know you did that. I think I'm going to be contacting you on that one. All right.
I live to serve.
That's so great. And I know you're going to do amazing. So people are going to be so excited to see you up there. I can't wait to see you just succeed and blow people's minds and make them feel the way you make me feel when I connect with you. So,
well, thank you so much, Dayna. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective with you today. Thank you.
Awesome. You're so welcome. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And we will see you in a couple weeks at Anarchapulco. Peace, love, anarchy.
Ideas about not wanting to use violence against people and not wanting to steal and extort them.
And they try to tell us that the liberty movement is dead. That's a bunch of baloney. It's alive and well.
All freedom is our natural and eternal right.
And shout this message about what real liberty and freedom mean, but for everybody.
And I think that we should start a revolution here today.
Peace, love, and anarchy.